Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here to review Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, episodes 1 through 4. This time around, I decided to do 4 episodes because really I enjoyed this show that much. So that is a glowing recommendation for the show so far. Yeah, there are aspects about Zom 100 that are very simplistic, but also just the way that they attack and approach zombies is overwhelmingly just so colorful and just so unique, surprising for a zombie apocalypse show. How we go on, and we can also have bits and pieces of this that are very relatable, or who you would be in a zombie apocalypse is to be rather interesting. But anyways, we mainly focus on Tendo. Tendo is to be a character that is to come to find his very first job. Because immediately when he's going into this environment, I'm like, oh, this is your first job? Because everything about this, where he goes on and further and talks about how he's exploited and how miserable he is, and like how he doesn't even know what day it is, how he's going on and just like immediately thinking like, oh yeah, I'm sure I'm working tomorrow and the next day and the next day and forever until I die, or I go crazed and then I just finally can't take it. So Tendo is going on and eventually watching on the telly a zombie apocalypse movie, and realizing how it's not as bad as his life. So eventually Tendo is to go on and find out things about his job and then get to a point where he no longer wants to be there. Kind of anybody put your hand up and go on to say if you've experienced any of this in your real life besides a zombie apocalypse, of course. But anyways, so Tendo goes on to just force himself to go to his workday to come to find out that there is to be a zombie outbreak that actually does happen. I would also like to go on and maybe just have this not exactly just be a zombie apocalypse, that maybe just everybody has been driven into craziness. Yeah, it would be a mass madness, but still, like, I would go on and much more buy that and much more be like, oh man, that would be a good way to end this, rather than it would just being just your zombie apocalypse that just all of a sudden just breaks out. But anyways, so Tendo goes on to eventually find out that this is a zombie apocalypse happening, and all he can think about is how this zombie apocalypse could affect him getting to work on time, but then he realizes, oh wait, if there's a zombie apocalypse really happening, and it's kind of overwhelming throughout the city, then why in the do I need to go to work then? So, Tendo goes on and he makes his way home to realize that he can just go on and F off. That he can do anything that he's ever wanted, as long as it can have him consistently keep surviving in the zombie apocalypse. So Tendo goes home and he tries as much as possible to think about 100 things that he can do, that he's always ever wanted done, to be done, and that is to be this bucket list thing. So Tendo goes on to eventually make these just crazy things on this list. And already it seems that life happens and it kind of fits within this list of him being able to achieve these things. So I'm assuming within hopefully this first season he covers all 100 of them. Or otherwise it's like, man, did you guys really hope that there's going to be X number of seasons? But anyways, so in the way of Tendo going on and weirdly being off-putting by everyone else that he meets, because Tendo is not seeing that his world is ending. Tendo is seeing that his world is to begin. And Tendo is to go on and be just so happy-go-lucky that everyone is to be very off-putted by him. And so it's like, yeah, you don't get it. If anything, if a zombie apocalypse would be happening, like, I don't think my life would exactly drastically change, but if anything, also, like, I would say that, like, yeah, if a zombie apocalypse was to happen tomorrow, then, uh, like, I would be best suited for an environment like that of how to survive, because I would go on and have a strategy. And speaking of strategy, we go on and we meet up with a woman who is to be called Suzuka. I believe that's how to possibly pronounce her name. I'm not quite sure. Suzuka goes on to be found up by Tendo while they go through this convenience store. So much about this show feels just like Shaun of the Dead in too many ways. So if anything, I'll probably tag Shaun of the Dead in this show because it's very similar. Because Tendo is just going to the convenience store just to get a thing of beer, and Suzuka doesn't understand why Tendo is doing this, because it's a needless thing. Suzuka is to go on and be a strategist. She is to go on and be crunching the numbers, and she is to figure out the best possible way to survive this apocalypse, because she's a numbers girl. And god dang is she attractive. So, just give me some of that, Suzuka. Yeah, right. Anyways, so eventually they have like a whole entire kind of episode that kind of focuses on her, and is to find out that she like works from home, and if anything, like, every bit of this zombie apocalypse is to be like across the board just be like working perfectly for her. She used to go on and have a treadmill, and she's working out, and she's trying to, as much as possible, be light on her feet. She has this weird protein medicine, which I'm like, I've never seen that before. Like, I would go on to see like people who were to go on and have like protein powder, but not protein pills. That made no sense to me. But anyways, so this girl is trying to figure out the zombie apocalypse. She's trying to see that zombies run and walk, and she's trying to figure out like what kind of way in which to best analyze this world. But then also she's looking at guys like Tendo, and she's realizing how weirdly happy he is, and how he was just go to this convenience store for this beer, and she's like, man, like, I feel so envious, because like I wanted to just go on and just get this one kind of dessert, this one little treat thing, but I just couldn't do it because it just didn't fit within my numbers. It just didn't make sense. So Tendo eventually goes on and finds other people besides Suzuka. So, who I just want to call Bazooka because she's freaking awesome. So, Tendo goes on and meets up with an old friend of his called Kenishiro. And Kenishiro is to be trapped in this room where he's kind of running out of resources. So, Tendo goes on and eventually just calls Kenishiro up, and Tendo is treating this like any other day, and Kenishiro's like, what's wrong with you? Don't you know there's zombies all over the place? And Kenishiro's like, no, like, it's fine, like, I'll go on and I'll meet up with you, and we'll hook up, and maybe we'll have a beer or something together. So Kenishiro's like, what are you talking about? Like, if you come here, you're going to die. So Tendo and Kenishiro meet up, and so eventually there is this dangerous risk that Tendo is willing to take in order to survive. And this has Kenishiro go on to realize, like, yeah, this could be dangerous. I could die. Like, how about I finally go on and confess everything to Tendo, because he had gone on to make a confession to me. So eventually we find out that Kenishiro has his own dream. We'll come to try and find out who everyone's dream is to go on and really just have or had or be. And so, because Tendo is trying to figure out his own, he's trying to go on and figure out how to uh really like figure out what he wants in life, because if anything he's realizing that his life is to just be running out. So Tendo goes on with Ken to just or Kenishiro to just do these very basic things that probably just don't make a lot of sense to people, but to me it's like, no, this kind of makes sense. uh to go on and just kind of get the simple beer, or in another case to get a big huge big screen TV, because maybe Tendo may never have gotten that experience. So plus, also, when everybody goes on and they shops with like Black Fridays and whatever, everybody just wants big, huge, massive TV screens. So, like, it honestly just weirdly makes the most sense. Plus, also, if you're trying to like watch the news to try to figure out what's going on, again, it makes sense. So, Tendo goes to this mall with Kenishiro, and eventually he meets people there. And then, when meeting people there, Tendo is to figure out that one of these things on his list of 30 some odd plus things right now, eventually one of them will be crossed off. So within that, like, that is in a nutshell what kind of goes on within these episodes, and I kind of wanted to make this really short because I knew that I was going to go on and take way too long to just go into every little detail of each one of these 4 episodes, because of just how much I really did enjoy it. And I was like, man, like, this hit the spot to just kind of be the right show at the right time, even though ultimately it probably will be a thing that no one really cares about, because it's just like, well, hey, this show was like X number of years ago on, but it's still on Netflix conveniently. But yeah, so I checked it out, I enjoyed it, and hopefully I will go on and soon get into more episodes of this because I really enjoyed this show. Uh, so with that said, I think it's about that time to just go on and push into character list and kind of what's going on blow for blow, scene for scene within this thing. Um, like, I don't want to say that this show was to go on and because I still like Darwin's Game. I think is to be still my favorite anime. And I know a lot of people are like, what the heck is Darwin's Game? If you've never heard of Darwin's Game, it's a really enjoyable anime. But I'm sure it's kind of hard to probably find somewhere, right? But anyways, so if you can watch that anime, it's definitely worth it. Because I enjoyed it. Plus, it's very visually cool and interesting. But anyways, so but if anything, I think maybe Zom 100 is to probably fit somewhere in my top 10, maybe top 15. Like, I don't know, like, it feels kind of like Zomboat in my opinion. Zomboat is just a very simple zombie apocalypse thing, and I think I like that. Like, so is kind of like Train to Busan in a way. Like, we just have a zombie apocalypse that's going on in a very small space, and we just have these people that realize, like, well, hey, like, we just have to wait till this train finally stops so we can go on and we could just get out of here. We can run off, and then eventually, when they run off, they realize that they're just stuck in these trains, um, because feasibly, like, everywhere they go, it's just overwhelming numbers of zombies. So I don't know why they have to just keep sticking onto a train, but I guess it's just Train to Busan, so you just really has to have this train thing just consistently going on throughout this entire film. And the dwindled down numbers of survival is kind of to be great. So With that said, let's go on and let's start breaking down this show because I think it's about that time yet again. It is spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time. I'm going to spoil these episodes. Let me know in the comments below what would be your favorite zombie apocalypse anime. I would probably also like to go on and probably talk about also High School of the Dead because I've reviewed that at some point, and I really did enjoy that anime also, and it was a very zombie apocalypse. There's some iconic visuals that eventually people would go on and meme or something like that somewhere, because of how good that anime I think still is to this day. Uh, Even though it's a fairly like it's a very much an idea that eventually gets copied and pasted through live action and a number of other things like All of Us Are Dead and stuff like that, where that's also I think like a Korean just zombie apocalypse show that eventually is to be done within a school. So we get all these school outfits and everything like that. But that's live action, that's not anime. Anyways, so but I'm sure I probably have gone on from time to time and done a zombie apocalypse anime or show kind of very briefly on here. Um, because I'm just like, hey, let's put this out there now. Anyways, so suppose everybody, let's go on and let's talk about these episodes. So I'm not going to pause because luckily I had this kind of opened anyways. Because I really needed to go on and figure out some of these people's names and how they're pronounced because I knew I was going to butcher them. So at the very beginning of this piece, we come to find that a guy named John is making his way through the streets looking at so much carnage, looking at people who are to either become infected or eventually be killed by the infected. So eventually, at one point, John is to be screaming throughout the streets and then comes to find that there is a huge street filled of zombies. You would think that that would probably be a thing that John would have noticed, but I guess not. He's too busy looking at everywhere, being like, oh, crazy! And so John goes on and eventually finds a full street of zombies where he realizes, oh, like, I hate this world. I want to get out of here. So as John turns to try to bolt his way away from the zombies, we would of course go on to have Tendo watching on this zombie apocalypse and realizing like, well, yeah, it seems like this guy has it pretty bad. It looks like he's pretty miserable, but not as miserable as I am. So cut to Tendo just passing out, and we have just a slew of just trash cans and all kinds of just schlop that is all over the goddamn place. This guy has turned into a hoarder. And, like, this scene is to be done very well here because this is to really showcase the mental health of the character, as well as also, like, you have to realize that if you're just endlessly going to work and that's it in your life, yeah, like you're going to go on and become a very tired person to the point of you not wanting to take a shower. Like a shower doesn't matter to you anymore. Like all you will go on and care about is how soon you can go on and get a drink or a meal and then sleep. Like that is bare bones basic of you giving about your life. Like you just want to get to the absolute essentials of like, okay, like when you're working, you're kind of doing the math in your head of like how many hours you're going to be able to get to sleep. Like that's what you do every day. Like you don't care about like you don't care about how much money you're gonna get, like what you're gonna spend that money on. No, like to me, I'm just like, how many hours am I gonna sleep tonight? Like, okay, I'm getting home at 10 or 11. Like, all right, like I could probably go on and like as soon as I get home, I get something to eat. Like I'll probably take like an hour, 2 hours to do everything, and then like I'll probably get to yeah, so it's a math equation to try to figure out how much hours you're going to get. Because yeah, that happens all the time. So Now cut to 3 years ago, in the past. We have Tendo that is being ushered into this job, uh, and being welcomed by everybody. And this whole opening is to be all a lie. Yeah, like, come in here, Tendo. All of this looks so happy, and everybody's willing to greet you. Because, yeah, they want somebody else to come in here so they can share the workload. Because these people are freaking tired. These people are exhausted. Uh, this is the calm before the storm. Like, this is the facade. Like you're in the desert and you see the mirage or the hallucination, and you're like, wait a minute, is that a drink of water? Yeah, it's like that. And then you find out as you run further and further, hoping that that's water, that it's just your eyes messing with you, thinking that you saw something blue, and it was nothing. So really, really just narrowing down the horrors here, but anything. So Tenno goes into this job and he's immediately thinking that he's going to be a huge success at it. And this job is to have him go on and seemingly work with celebrities of some kind, or he's working on like putting together a plan to have a movie or TV project to be under a certain budget, to have these certain ideas. And so I want to be very vague about that because I don't exactly know. They don't really go into this that well, and it doesn't really matter because at a certain point, his job will no longer matter. So, I'm just being honest. So, Tendo goes on and makes his way through the office and bumps into a woman, and this is the cliche office thing that we always have to do in every single office thing that has ever existed. So, we go on to have Tendo bump into a girl named Otori. Otori is to go on and drop all her stuff, so Tendo is to help her out and pick her stuff up. They go on and they kind of introduce one another, and immediately Tendo is like, "Oh my god, this girl is good looking." Oh, like he is just so smitten with her. So Otori mentions how she's from accounting, and so I'm sure she probably knows who this guy is and that he's new, because a lot of accounting people, they go on and they have to find out about these new hires and so on and so forth. Anyways, so they go on and they say it's like, oh yeah, it's nice to maybe in the future be working with you. Da, 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 da. It's a lot of just introduction stuff here. So Tendo, after the first day, he goes on and he makes his way to this restaurant to meet up with all of his coworkers because they're going to share some beers and they're going to share some sushi that's on a stick. I love me some Chinese food, and I don't think I'm much of a sushi person just because I'm not much of a fish person. But I would love to be open minded and say that I'm willing to just try anything because I don't think I have any allergies to any kind of food of any kind. Um, but yeah, I'm just for some weird reason just not a fish person. I just don't know why. Like I went to a seafood restaurant once, and I'm like, I can't figure out anything to eat in this menu. Like I was just thinking about like, well, hey, maybe I'll have like calamari or some kind of weird, goofy um, thing that is to just be kind of weirdly known as a seafood thing to eat. But yeah, I just was not sure. So we honestly just kind of left the restaurant, and I just kind of felt bad because I'm like, yeah, we spent all this time going to this place, and I didn't eat anything. Um, but oh well, like moving on. So eventually they start eating sushi and drinking beers, and nobody's really talking about the job and saying how like horrible it is or how the conditions are or nothing. Like all of them are just going on and talking to Tendo and asking about his background, which is kind of nice. So we get some background of this character. So, like, because no one is going on and sharing their horror stories. So like that would normally be a thing to do, but they're not. So, or even having gossip about anything. But again, not doing that either. So they're going on and they're asking Tendo about his backstory, and they find out that he's a rugby player. I'm like, oh my god, he's a rugby player? This guy is probably going to crush the zombie apocalypse. Man, yeah, like, I would be overwhelmingly impressed by rugby players. Because that sport is so vicious. And uh like there is quite a bit of like there's the movie Invictus, but if anything, um even like Friends, like there was an episode of Friends where Ross would go on and play rugby, and he was just beaten the crap out of, and they just kept pushing him to continue to play. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess like I'll just keep playing, and then he would just keep getting hurt more within this one session of playing rugby. And I'm like, man, that is a tough sport. So like I respect anybody that does that sport. So because also I played American football and I was shit at it, because of course I was. And even that, I'm just like, man, like for how not good at sports I was, that eventually pushed me to just be like, but I want to be freaking athletic because I want to then prove that I'm good at something, like that I'm not just uh somebody that's gonna go through life and not feel that like that I could not have been an athletic person. So like that's where eventually I found weightlifting, even though I'm not really good at it. Like I've at least gone on to cross some things off my list to just be satisfied about where I am athletically. But I'm still not I'm still not completely happy about my performances on every other day, because I'm just kind of doing this very consistently, and I'm trying to keep pushing myself to try to be better, and I feel like I'm just kind of stuck somewhere, so it just kind of sucks. Plus, I also just kind of really kind of messed up my body, so like I'm trying to get back to it, but it's a process. So, anyways, so Tendo goes on to, between all this chatter, eventually sees Otori. It's like, oh, Otori. So he's going on and looking at her and realizing how attractive she is and how, like, man, she's my type. Like, I just so want to be with her. And eventually, all of a sudden, as Tendo is getting distracted, all of a sudden we start to notice that all of his coworkers are starting to get up from the table, and eventually they're calling for their checks or whatever, and they're realizing like, okay, right back to work. And Tendo's like, huh? So Tendo will go on to find out how strenuous this job is. Eventually, Tendo will go on and be looking at the clock and will look at his coworkers like, hey, aren't you going home? And the people are like, no, like 10 more minutes. And so we'll start to go on and start to see like people like falling asleep at their desks in their chairs, and we'll start to see people in sleeping bags right in their cubicles. I'm like, oh my god. Like, yeah, believe me, there have been times um where I like Black Fridays and stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, you basically don't sleep for like 2 days straight. And there are times where you lose like 10 pounds in a day, but like, yeah, like, and there's quite a bit of environments where you're basically just like living in your work. Like, there's sometimes where I'd go on and I'd do a shift where it's like 11 at night, and then I'd have to show up at like 5 in the morning the next day. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Like, this turnaround is just bananas. So, if anyways, it's just like, suck it up and just keep going. Keep going until you break, or until you realize that you're just like, you know what, I can just find another job that pays just the same. And that's kind of what I did. And there were some times where I just quit jobs just because, like, dude, I can get paid the same and work here and probably even get paid. I could probably get paid more because of the hours that I'm going to do. So why be here? But anyways, so but whip out my violins, because I'm trying as much as possible to avoid um doing this, because I know I do it too often. So I apologize to everybody. But I think there's some kind of relatability that everyone has, and as well as also first job. Anyways, yeah, throwing some shade out there. And so Tendo is a go on, and here's where he starts to find all these kind of like white things on people's foreheads, and I have no idea what that is. If people know what the white things in the foreheads are, like what these guys are wearing, like, is a sweat protector? What is that? Like, I'm so confused. Um, but anyways, so Tendo goes home after working 2 days straight and just smashes onto his bed, and he just can't sleep. So Tendo eventually goes on. It's like, oh, okay, well, like, and if anything, I think I'm to a point now where I think I just need to just suck it up. Like, if anything, maybe I just haven't been working here long enough. And in all honesty, for me, like, the suck it up moment, um, when I would go on and when I started working at this retail store, like, I really realized how I wasn't strong enough. I really was to realize, like, the gap of, like, well, I thought I was pretty strong, but when I got to this place, I'm like, whoa, like, this is a completely different athletic scale than what I'm used to. So I decided to go into a gym, like, I'll admit it. And I really tried as much as possible to focus on becoming strong enough to handle this job. And then it just became like, oh, okay, well, I'm going on and I'm having to do this job and just have a lifetime of being at the gym. Like, this is kind of crazy. Like, uh because it would kind of get to the point where it was like every day, like, I was going into the gym, um just so that way I could continue to do this job. And so it's like, okay, like, I have no life. Like, and then when I had a girlfriend, it was like, well, fuck working out, fuck doing, like, F my job. Like, all I care about is just having this girlfriend right now, and that's all that mattered. And because I was just so happy that I had that nothing else mattered to me. And so, yeah, so, like, yeah, it goes on to eventually just be like, okay, well, like, after that whole relationship is over, then it's like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the gym. I'm gonna focus on like, getting better, um at because, like, I was also kind of falling apart too. Physically, I was just like, I am falling freaking apart. So yeah, um like, it became like, yeah, I need to kind of bounce back, and I need to kind of um get back into working out, or I'm going to completely just crash and burn. Anyways, whip out more violence. Anyways, so Tendo goes on and makes his way back to work, and he attacks his day. He goes on like, "Hello, everyone." So he's going in there, and here's where we find all the people who have like sleeping tents, and we have a guy that is going on and willing to be charitable to one of his coworkers because he makes more money than he does. So it's like, man, that's really kind of nice. So we find out a guy who is to be a department chief, Kosugi, who finds two employees, and so he starts reaming them out. And it's kind of hilarious because this guy is going on and he's saying like, "Hey, you need to go on. You need to make a decision on your own." But then he's also just like, "But wait a minute, like you made a decision without me." Like, so like this is one of those guys that likes to go on and just likes to yell at people because he just weirdly enjoys it. And eventually he's just trying to figure out a way to break people. And like there is those people that just weirdly exist. I've been in an environment with that happening, and luckily it never happened specifically to me, but it happened to other people. And like if it would have happened to me, no. I would say right now, no. Like I would not put up with that. Like I've had the guy kind of chew me out, but I'm like, I don't need to be here anymore. I can go on and find another job, and they will treat me a lot better than this. So when I got to that point, I was like, this is the time to go. Later days. Because when I was to be in an environment with that kind of manager, I'm like, this is kind of the last straw. Like at that point, I was doing like overnights, and then they would randomly schedule me to like work the mornings too. So I'm like, I am not sleeping anymore. Like I would do like a 12-hour overnight, and then like 2 days later I'd be working like an 8 in the morning to like 4 in the afternoon. And I'm like I am just going in every day like a deer in my headlights, and I could not function at some point. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go on and find this other job because at least my sleep schedule will actually feel like a human schedule. Um, so yeah, so whip out the anyways. So we come to find out that these people are taking drugs and energy drinks to just keep going. So we transition on to our second year. So at this point, we have Tendo, who is to not even remember whether or not he took a bath or not, or a shower or not. And he's sniffing himself to go on to think if he smells or not. Yeah, that's to be a thing, folks. Um, and a lot of people will go on and care about their hygiene the most when doing a job, and then others will just be like, dude, all I give a about is when is the next time I could just go to bed so that way I can get as much hours as I can, and nothing else matters besides eating, drinking, and sleeping. That's it. So you could say that that's horrible. You could say it's like, man, that's gross. At some point, you just don't care anymore. You just really don't. Um, and the checks aren't really that good either. They really aren't. So, of what you're getting for. Yeah, so, anyways. So I'm sure probably the minimum wage is a little bit better now, like probably way better than it was, but still. I'm sure the hours aren't great. They aren't. Anyways, so we'd come to find that a guy would make his way to Tendo and explain how someone had just gotten fired and how much of a piece of crap this guy was anyways. So this guy is taking the guy who had gotten let go's responsibility and or let go. I think he kind of quit or something, and so he's shirking this responsibility on Tendo. And so all of a sudden, Tendo is be kind of met by Otori, and she brings either him a bag of food or she has a bag of food for herself, and it's to say, oh yeah, like have you been eating lately? Like make sure you're remembering to eat. Because I know that's something very simple to forget about. Yeah, like if anything, when you're in a work environment, you're probably eating, but it's not anything healthy. It's really not. Like for me, yeah, I would go on and just purely just junk food all the time. Because I was like, yeah, I'll just go home and I'll eat a lot more. Or for me, I would go on and just go to a gas station and just buy a bunch of garbage, and then that would be the thing that I would just kind of be um, taking throughout my day, just to just keep going. So, uh, eventually, after Otori talks to Tendo here, and then she would make her way into her boss's office. I believe this is the CEO. So Tendo still just pining away for this girl for how lovely and nice she is. And then all of a sudden, off in the distance, we'd come to find that Otori and the CEO are going on and making some ruckus within their office. The CEO is mentioning about how the walls are so thick, no one's ever going to hear them because he's having sex with her. He's banging her. And so yeah, this guy doesn't give a fuck. He's gonna go on and just have some sex in this office. So and everybody knows it. Everybody knows. So Tendo goes on and is to finally be done with his workday, and he's questioning whether or not he should find another job at this point. But he realizes since he has the job that he has right now that there's no time to go on and find another. Yeah, that happens all the time. You really have to go on and like yeah, it's super hard because like eventually if you're working like 9 or 10 hours a day, it's really hard to figure out when you're going to go on and get an interview because these people want to go on and schedule on a very specific day, and you're like, yeah, that's not going to happen because I'm already working X number of hours that day. So it's kind of hard to try to do interviews, and then those interviews are just like, this is not the job I want. So you've just wasted so much time. Or you would come to find out that the job that you had applied for, like the position isn't even available. Like you would come to the interview and they'd be like, "Well, what did you apply for?" It's like, "Well, I applied to this job." It's like, "We don't even have that job available here." And like, so what was the point of this interview? um, so I'm just like, okay, so you just hired me to fill a spot somewhere, and and they were gonna like pay me less money, and I don't know what I was doing there. So it's just like, okay, bye. But yeah, so this guy going on irrationally saying that he doesn't think he'll be able to get another job. Yeah, plus also, you have experience in a certain field that if you try to go on to another job, like it's not really going to work because they're just like, oh, well, you don't really have experience in this job. You just have experience doing this. All you ever get is that same exact job. Sad but true. So you're just better left off to just stick in that same environment and just deal with it, um, and hope it gets better at some point. It's sad, but it's probably true. So now we then go on to Tendo's finally third year because he's been there for 3 years. So Tendo is going on and having a like a Zoom call or a call through his computer, and his boss is going on and telling him how uh, they're making changes, and eventually Tendo realizes that the project that he's put together is already on like a shoestring budget anyways, and the changes that they're trying to make is really going to affect his project overall. So it's kind of to the point where it's like, man, all the work that he just did is basically pointless. That he has to go back to the drawing board to figure out how to do this whole project and make it work all over again. Because they want a very specific thing. So at this point, Tendo is just endlessly doodling on this piece of paper, just making himself look busy and just consistently doodling. So now Tendo is at a point where he does not want to go to work tomorrow or maybe ever again. And he's going on, he's watching his TV, and like his brain is starting to become more and more warped. So eventually, as Tendo is stuffing food into his face, he goes on to pass out yet again, and his TV goes off. So Tendo now goes on and wakes up the following day and sees a piece of paper. So Tendo is realizing that he's having to go on and again get ready for work. So Tendo goes on, and I believe like this is a point in the show where he has to like pay for rent or something. So Tendo goes on and makes his way to this landlord, and as soon as he's met by the landlord, he comes to find that the landlord has turned into a zombie. And so here's the thing, like right at the scene here, it's all done in black and white, but then when you look at the zombies, they're to have color all over them, like greens and reds and blues and very clown-like, but still, it's a really interesting visual that I really absolutely loved. So Tendo, as soon as he gets outside, is to be mauled by all these zombies following him, and Tendo is having these doors being opened, and he's smacking into the doors, and he's continuously trying to avoid all these zombies as there's blood now dripping from his forehead. Tendo is running all over the place because he does not have his bike on him for some reason, and Tendo is consistently thinking about how him being chased by these zombies is probably going to make him late for work, which is hilarious. So we all of a sudden see in the background a plane, and then that plane crashing, because of course, like it makes a sense that like chaos is running loose here. So the further and further Tendo runs, again, all he's thinking about is like, well, like, well, wait a minute, like I'm gonna be late for work. The zombie apocalypse is really gonna be tough. And then all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, I don't have to go to work anymore. And then he's like, huzzah! Like, so he's now absolutely happy. And he is just sliding through these zombies, and he is now realizing how his life is to, instead of being in such black and white, he is to finally notice color. Color has come back to him now, and like how even blood is to be kind of just on his hand, and he's like, ah, like red, like that's all he's seeing. So Tendo is to be the happiest man alive, and we then have Tendo, who is to go on and realize that he should go on and do what he wants with his life. That if anything, since now a zombie apocalypse has happened, he should really realize that, like, well, wait, maybe I should go on and see what Otori's doing, because now that there's a zombie apocalypse and she doesn't need that job, she doesn't have to go on and be this side chick anymore to her CEO. That if anything, this girl can do whatever she wants. So Tendo goes on and gets to his bike and starts biking around. We start to see a plethora of different visuals of all these zombies just running rampant through these saunas and all these other kind of places randomly. So Tendo is making his way to Otori's place. And so he goes on and he knocks on her door. Tendo is to just go on and try to pretend that he just wants to go on and see her, and maybe if he can't really talk to her or confess to her, then maybe he can just go to see if she's still alive, to maybe just have a bit of conversation because of that. So the sad thing is that when Tendo opens the door, he meets somebody, but it's not Otori. It's a CEO. The CEO, come to find out, is to be infected, and he's turning into a zombie right in front of Tendo's eyes. So, Tendo, because the world has ended, Tendo is to look at his boss straight to his face and tell him the truth about this job and say that he has quit. And he's going in depth about it, and like as if he's to be a real person, but he's not anymore because he's a zombie. But Tendo doesn't care. He's going on confessing this because he's getting this off of his chest. So Tendo is to go on and remember his rugby skills and tackles this guy. So the CEO goes flying and makes his way towards this bridge, and then just makes this weird either like splash of blood, or it just looks like this weird fountain goes off, and it's strange. So Tendo then goes on and starts making his way through the apartment to find out what had happened to Otori, and it's heartbreaking. Tendo goes on and finds out that Otori was in mid thrusted in and mid loving in of the CEO, and that unfortunately Otori had turned into a zombie also. And it's like, ah, come on. So Otori and Tendo, they look at one another, and then Otori attacks Tendo. Tendo does not want to kill Otori. Tori slams the door behind him and leaves this place. So Otori is to Tendo is to now make his way to this convenience store that I guess is to not have people in it, and he can just go into it willy nilly. So just grab whatever he wants. Plus, also Shaun of the Dead also had that vending or that convenience store that just had nobody working into it, and so like Shaun was going on like, okay, hey, I owe you X number of cents, and then he walks away. So Tendo is realizing that there's a possibility that his life is probably going to get cut short here. That he's realizing that like he may go on and he might live tomorrow or the next day or maybe a week from now. So since tomorrow is not guaranteed, he needs to go on and he needs to act now. He needs to do something that is going to matter to him. And so Tendo is going on, and he is to have grabbed a notebook. And here's where Tendo goes on and starts scratching down these things that he's always ever wanted to do. So, because Tendo is to go on and start talking about how he's always ever wanted to skydive, or how he's ever wanted to go on and start doing these things. So, the following day, Tendo goes on to be outside and he starts screaming good morning world, as the zombies are to kind of be down on the ground there. So Tendo goes on and he just starts cleaning his entire home. He thrusts all the garbage bags outside because it doesn't really matter where they are. Like, this world has ended, so Tendo can just do whatever the fuck he wants. So Tendo realizes that, like, since he's now cleaned everything, what would really hit the spot is for him to go on and just take a day to just do absolutely nothing and just drink a lot of beer and then just have fun. The only problem is when Tendo opens the fridge, he realizes that there's no beer in it, that he's completely out, or that there's only one left. So Tendo goes on and watches a live feed of what's going on with the zombie apocalypse. We have a news reporter that's in her studio, and she's doing a live broadcast having a bunch of guys holding a door because the zombies are trying to break in. This broadcaster is basically going to do her last live news report, as basically the zombies are going to kill her. And yeah, of course that's going to happen. So Tendo goes on to realize that he's out of beer, and so he's looking outside to see all the zombie apocalypse breaking out on all the zombies that are to be around this area. So it's kind of funny how Tendo is to go from a person that's like, yeah, I'm so happy, I can do whatever I want. But then as soon as he goes on and realizes that he has to go outside and he has to do something, he's like, oh man, I don't really want to do that. I have to go outside now. So it's kind of funny. So, but Tendo realizes that he has to go on and he has to get beer. So now we come to find that there are two neighbors that are living in the same apartment building as Tendo is. So they start to realize that their door is getting broken into, and they realize that there's only a very short amount of time for them to probably live at this point. So we would go on to find that one of the neighbors pokes his head out to the balcony to hope that there's somebody out there that could help them. Poof! All of a sudden, Tendo starts to be crawling down this pipe. Honestly, these neighbors should have probably gone on and done the exact same thing, because if anything, they probably would have lived a lot longer. So, this neighbor all of a sudden notices Tendo. It's like, huh? Like, Spider-Man? Anyways, so there's a bit of introduction here, and then so Tendo goes on and asks his neighbors, hey, I'm making a run to the convenience store. Would you guys like anything? And immediately they're like, yeah, I get. Like, so they start going on and mentioning some stuff that they need, like some noodles and a flashlight and some toilet paper. And so he's like, oh, okay, like I'll go on and I'll get that. So he climbs down and he like jumps off onto his bike. So Tendo goes on and starts biking through the zombie apocalypse. We'll start to see a huge swarm of zombies all around him, but he's just biking his way like nothing's wrong. So Tendo goes into the convenience store where eventually he's singing this song Beer. This guy is awfully loud for it to be a zombie apocalypse, and it doesn't make sense. So all of a sudden there's to be this camera that is on this bike, and we have no inkling of why it's there. Come to find out there's a reason for that, and it ties into the other character who we will focus on called Shizuka. So Tendo goes into the convenience store and then all of a sudden notices this athletically wielding outfit of a character, Suzuka, and she's going on and she's drinking a bit of water. So the two of them are to go on to realize that they have survived this zombie apocalypse. It's like, oh, eh. So we find that this girl has these baskets with all of these carts of water in it. Pretty good strategy, but if anything, I think maybe a duffel bag or something that you could actually just like have a big enough bag that you can carry a lot of like that's why I think a zombie apocalypse, the person that I think will go on and win a zombie apocalypse would be a backpacker. Because, man, if you could be like Norman Reedus from Dead Stranding, where you're going on and having a shitload of stuff just on your back and you're just like hauling it out, you're going to win the zombie apocalypse. Because, yeah, if you could basically just have a lot of on your back and be able to wield a weapon and be able to function during the zombie apocalypse, and you could probably get a good jog or run going, yeah, you're going to win the zombie apocalypse. Because, yeah, a backpacker, yeah, that should be the person that is to be successful in a zombie apocalypse. Regardless of cars and vehicles existing, because I think that's also a huge problem in some other zombie things where eventually nobody has a car anymore. That is the most annoying thing. Like in The Walking Dead, they had an RV for a while, but eventually it just kind of becomes that everybody's on foot and it no longer makes sense to me. I'm like, no, 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 no. Cars still exist. Like that's why when Tendo goes on and he has this motorcycle bike, I'm like, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. Because you can kind of make your way through just small avenues. But if anything, I would like a much more like bigger kind of car where you can just stack a lot of stuff. Um, and that's just me. So we'd have Tendo go on and ask for this girl's number, and Shizuka goes on, and I'm probably gonna butcher this name because I can't remember it for the life of me. Shizuka goes on and mentions, as she starts opening up her phone thing, that eventually she notices that Tendo is to have gone to the store to buy needless things, which is beer, and that she has no real interest in a guy like that because of if he's gonna go on and do what he's doing, then he's not gonna stay alive for very long. And so as Suzuka goes on and starts to make her way out of the store, we start to notice that zombies are making their way inside the store, and Tendo is trying to get in between them to try to protect her. And Shizuka is to go on and realize how that's a stupid plan. So Shizuka goes on and grabs Tendo and thrusts him away, and then all of a sudden, this truck comes flying through and crushes all these zombies and kills all of them simultaneously. And then Shizuka is like, well, like I guess that was a really good plan, and then she walks off. Cause Shizuka will go on and find and realize that the whole truck thing was actually all mathematically planned in her head. That she knew that the truck was coming, and that she was hoping that it was going to attack these zombies at the perfect time. So she mathematically figured this all out, and she just like, I'm kind of curious what her fighting skill is like, because what if she goes on and she fights against all these zombies. I'm trying to think if she's going to go on and use weapons or if she's going to just fight them. If she can fight, if she can know karate, then um then this will be a really interesting show either way. But I honestly would like Shizuka with actual weapons. Um, like, how is it that she doesn't have one thing of like a stick or something on her? Just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Uh, like, plus also, I would go on to even think that like a sleeping aid or a tranquilizer dart would be a huge benefit in a zombie apocalypse. But if anything, I think these people don't have those devices readily available because why would they? Anyways, so Shizuka writes Tendo off as a analyzing risk, and so we have Tendo that makes his way outside of the store, realizing that his bike is now destroyed, and also Tendo was realized that how distracted he was, and he starts to make sense for what that girl was saying. So we then have Tendo who has a bunch of beer in this basket, and now he's running on foot. But then he's like, wait a minute. Like, I am to go on and see just so many vehicles just lying around for me to use. So he's like, why don't I just grab one of these vehicles and just start driving them? Because if anything, like the zombie apocalypse was happening during rush hour. So there's so many vehicles that is just lying around. So at first, Tendo gets this scooter, and then he realizes, like, well, yeah, this is nice and all, but like, I can definitely go on and upgrade. So Tendo goes from a scooter to then a motorcycle. Here's the thing, though. Honestly, the bike would have been better off because then Tendo would have gone on and gotten some exercise. Uh, Plus, also, the bike would have been quieter. But the thing is that the motorcycle will eventually not be able, or will be able to actually hold more than one person, as well as also kind of get to have them be able to do more of the things that they're going to do within the show. So it's more reasonable. But also, like, the guy should have really upgraded to a much more substantial vehicle uh, that he can go on and store more and then drop off at his house, in my opinion, would be way better off. So, but definitely wouldn't be dropping off no people. No, no. Anyways, so here's where Tendo makes his way back to his place, climbs up the pipe, and goes to the home that is his neighbor's and starts talking about what happened. All of a sudden, he notices that his neighbor's window is broken and that there's blood all over the place. So Tendo is immediately realized that his neighbors are dead. So he just makes his way back to his place, pops open a couple beers, and downs them. So Tendo is going on and watching the live news feed to see what's going on, how worse this is getting, and so Tendo is going on and making this list of all these things that he's always ever wanted to do. And he only has 30, but he wants to make 100. So we have Tendo that is to kind of close this book, and then we get into Shizuka. Shizuka is going on to listen to an emergency broadcast and is watching on the TV to see what's going on, that the news studio is getting broken into. Here's where Shizuka goes on and grabs the pills of protein, which it makes no sense. There's zinc, there's iron in here. It's kind of pretty good. Vitamins are pretty good. Seems a lot of the stuff is super generic also. Like, why would there be a thing of iron? That seems weird. Anyways, so so Shizuka is going on and just typing away at her computer, trying to analyze everything. And here's now where we go on and we see John again, this zombie survivor. So he's going on to say, "Yeah, I've escaped this hell. Oh yeah, like what a relief it is." And then all of a sudden, right behind him becomes a zombie on his neck, and John is being infected. And then the credits roll. So Shizuka is now going on and watching this movie. So she's been watching all of the possible zombie apocalypse films because she's trying to get information out of it. She's trying to see if there's anything that she can analyze in these things that is going to help her in this situation. So she realizes that there is zombies that walk and then there are zombies that run. And so Shizuka is trying to figure out how to decipher by looking at a zombie which ones are to be the walking ones and which ones are to be the running ones. And so as she's going on and seeing a woman nibble on the back of a guy's neck as he's downed. So we have Shizuka that goes on to grab her bike. Here's where Shizuka goes on and gets to the convenience store, like the episode prior, and goes on to have a camera that is watching the environment that she's in. I'm like, God damn, that's smart. So it's kind of like that whole like Zombieland thing where it's like, when in doubt, find your way out. Like we have a lot of like spies or a lot of detectives and whoever that always want to know where the exits are. Like we have Bourne Identity that goes on to say, it's like, well, hey, like I can tell you how many people in the room, I can tell you how many exits there are, and I know all this information, but I don't know who I am. Blah 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 blah. So, like, everybody goes on and they have to care about where the exits are. I think for me, yeah, I always go on when I go into a store. Or I go into a place, I always kind of look for the exits because I'm always just like, okay, like I just kind of need to retrace my steps if I find nothing, and then boom, like here's my quickest way out of here. So Shizuka goes on in the convenience store and starts finding a thing called energy gas, which is weird. She finds some meat, but then she's tempted by that one sweet treat, right? So Shizuka then goes on and whips out her her device and then notices Tendo, and he's going on doing that beer song. So Shizuka realizes that because of how loudmouth this guy is, that eventually he was to have gone on and attract zombies. She can see on her feed that zombies are following him because he's freaking loud. He should shut the up. So if anything, for me, I think in a zombie apocalypse, I would be loud too. Because if anything, if anyways, I could have known how to defend myself. But again, also, I would be kind of worried, like the normal people that'd be in a zombie apocalypse. So because you kind of like when like the world goes like you can't really trust anybody. But like it would be nice if like the human race would just be like, okay, like let's all realize, let's band together now more so than ever because, yeah, like zombies are to have existed. Anyways, so Tendo makes his way into the store, and the whole time while he's talking, Shizuka is going on and thinking. Um, so she's continuing to watch on her feed that a truck is making its way here, and so she's planning it. Um, that if anything, she's realizing that if this truck comes and it crashes through here, that she'll be able to survive because these zombies are also making their way to this store. So the zombies come in. Uh, Here's where Suzuka goes on and mentions about how this guy is getting beer and how she doesn't really have any interest in him. And Tendo goes on and gets in the way. She rips him away from the situation. The truck crashes, and Shizuka has gone on to plan all this. And it mentions how perfect cliche this all is. So we then go on to have Shizuka make her way back home. And she took this time to have this camera out so that way she could analyze the zombie apocalypse, get as much information as she can on it, so that way she can go on and figure out the whole, like, well, hey, who's the walking, who's the running zombies, like, how can we go on and best figure this all out. So here's where Shizuka has to realize how happy this guy was and how weird that is. And if anything, she was to realize how needlessly he had gotten that beer, and she's like, man, I just kind of feel so envious because, like, I would have liked to have just at least got on and gotten that one treat because it really would have hit the spot. So, cut to now the next following episode. We have a guy who I believe his name is pronounced Show, because it's Shou. So it sounds like show. It probably could be show. I have no idea. Because they didn't say it within this episode. So, or maybe they did, and I just didn't quite overhear it. So, I'm gonna just keep calling him Show. We all of a sudden have this little girl that's at this dinner table or this dining table at this restaurante, and Show all of a sudden notices this girl and tells her it's like, you know what, I'm sure you've been through quite a lot, but you're safe here. And so all of a sudden, like a waiter or butler of sorts goes on and grabs a guy in a suit. I don't want to go on and give labels here, but anyways, so this guy goes on and grabs Show and tells him, "Hey, the zombies, they're back. Like, we need to go on and we need to kind of act on this." So Show goes on and tells the girl, "It's like, hey, he's like, I have a small meeting. Yeah, a small beating, if anything. So he leaves, uh, and he promises to go back to her. So the next thing we see is a bunch of Molotov cocktails being prepared, not lit, but being kind of already out there, and they're going to throw them. We have a army of people that are all making their way outside to defend themselves against this location because zombies are making their way there. Really, really smart, just the strategy that kind of is going in with these people, but eventually they get overrun and a lot of people end up getting killed. So these Molotov cocktails continue to get chucked, and we're seeing even like billboards and signs of this guy to say how important he really is. So this guy is kind of leading the charge here, telling everybody what to do, show, and telling them like, hey, give it all you got, because yeah, like we definitely have to keep this place defended. So, cut to Tendo. Tendo is now on this motorcycle making his way through the streets, and he's going to make his way to his best friend. So kind of cut to us needing to understand what the heck is going on with that. So we go to much earlier in the morning, and Tendo is waking up, and he's realizing that he's starting to get a little grizzly. He's starting to get a little beard going. And so Tendo is thinking, well, maybe I should start going on and maybe I should grow out some facial hair. And but he's like, well, like I'm not quite sure what it's gonna look like, or like I don't know. Like he probably doesn't like the color of it, so he goes on and takes this marker and just starts markering his face to make it look like the facial hair is much more filled in. But he's like, I don't really like that either. So he just goes on and he just cleans his face, and like the beard and everything is just kind of all gone. So Tendo goes on to notice on his phone that the internet where he's at is back, which is supposedly weird. Because he goes on to say, it's like, well, yeah, this place never normally has internet, but I guess there's so few people using it here now because there's probably so many people dead that nobody's using the internet. So he goes on to realize, like, okay, well, I can now go on and I can now have conversations with all these people because my internet is now working. So we take a lot of time for Tendo to be looking at his phone, having these just kind of conversations, and just looking at his social medias and whatever. So now we go on to find all these crows are going on and nibbling at these people, because yeah, of course they are. So I'm wondering if there's going to be some crow zombies, some crombies, some crowbees, crombies. I think crombies were better. Uh, anyways, uh, here's where eventually Tendo is going to realize that, hey, Kenshiro, like, hey, I think he's still alive. So we now have to go on and remember that Kenshiro and Tendo were to have played rugby together, and they had a past where they were really good friends. They had shared beers with one another, and at one point, Kenshiro had gone on to tell Tendo, "Hey, man, like if you really hate your job, how about you leave it? If anything, I'm having a high life now. I'm gonna go on and be in this retail real estate job, and if anything, I'm dating models and I'm having a good old time." And eventually, we'll come to find out that Kenshiro is eventually confessed to Tendo that all of that was bullshit, that all of it was a lie. So now we find out what is really going on with Kenshiro. Kenshiro is to have made his way into a very specific room and start to run out of resources. He had gone on to drink the last of his water. Why not just drink your own urine? Because several people had gone on to do the same horrible thing. And yeah, drinking urine is not exactly uh, the most safest thing to drink. But if anything, if you have nothing better, and also if you have bottled waters anyways, you can just pee into that and then have to be forcibly needing to drink your own urine. This guy's to go on and complain about how he had only been able to drink water for 3 days. Boo frickety hoo. At least you drink something. Come on. Like, really? You're gonna freaking bitch and moan about, oh, I haven't drank water for 3 days. Really? Anyways, you drink something. So, also, Kenshiro is to realize that he was locked in a room that was to be of a sex dungeon, of a room where he's sharing it with a girl who's a zombie and she's in bondage and she's tied to this room. So Kaneshiro is to all of a sudden remember Tendo. For some reason, he doesn't understand why. And so the two of them are doing some rugby things, maybe a practice, maybe a game or something, maybe after a game. And Kenishiro is making Tendo laugh so hard that he's like falling on the front, on the ground, raffling, right? Or whatever it is, rolling on the floor laughing, whatever. Anyways, so Kenshiro doesn't quite understand why exactly he's going on and thinking of this person, but then all of a sudden, on his phone, he ends up getting a phone call. It's from Tendo. Kenshiro answers, and so Tendo goes on and says, like, "Hey man, you still alive? Yeah. Well, hey, I'll go in and I'll pick you up." And Kenishiro's like, "Wait a minute, like I have zombies that are kind of swarming around this place." And Tendo's like, "Ah, no, it's no biggie. Like, I'll go on and I'll pick you up." And Kenishiro's like, "What?" Like, he is so baffled and so confused at this point. So now we have Tendo that is going on, and as he's making his way to Kenishiro, the memories in the background of pictures of him in rugby and his past is kind of being shown in the background. And then we go on to the spot where Kenishiro and uh, Tendo are at this restaurant together, and Tendo is complaining about his job, and Kenishiro is mentioning like, "Well, hey man, if this is really making you miserable, maybe you should quit. Like, yeah, you should probably try to find something that's more happier for you." And then Kenishiro goes on and talks about how great his life is going on and being, and Tendo is just like I hate you kind of feeling. But eventually Tendo will go on and meet with Kenishiro face to face and will confess to him um, about he should have been like happier for Kenishiro for going on and being happy and successful and what have you. But like all really Tendo was really focusing on is really himself and for how he wanted to really apologize to Kenishiro because of just how he kind of treated that whole situation. But anyways, so we now cut to Tendo and he's making his way through all these zombies and we come to find out that Sho is to be the only one left and he's thinking like, oh, okay, is this how it's going to end? Like I'm the only one left. All right, like okay, so Sho has to realize that he's probably to go on and he's to probably not to be able to keep that promise to that little girl that he's going to come back to her. Then all of a sudden there ends up getting this loud horn sound and all these zombies are to be attracted to this one area, which is actually pretty smart when you think about it. It's kind of like in Walking Dead when eventually Alexandria had that one truck that like bashed into it and then the horn was going on and they had to run to the truck to try to get the horn to go off and then they had to fight all the zombies that were making their way there. Same thing. So, but in this way, it's kind of like, hey, use this horn as a way to get zombies to this other location instead of the location you're in. And that's actually pretty brilliant. And I wish that a lot of places would have used that a lot more. But here's the thing me, myself, I don't feel that zombies are to really be attracted by sound. Because anything could make noise. I think for me, I think zombies should be more attracted to the scent of somebody. Um, the scent of somebody or just the seeing them. Like, I just don't think that all zombies should be blind. That doesn't make any sense to me. Uh, but I guess, yeah, sound, if, like, because if you think about it, like, anybody kind of gets annoyed from sound, but you would think that for a zombie, it wouldn't be such an annoyance to them. But I guess maybe if you think about it, like, a human any human would go on and kind of be annoyed about a sound going on for too long. So yeah, I guess they should be attracted by a loud sound because yeah, it may make sense, but to me, I'm just like, a zombie should be more attracted by the scent of somebody. Anyways, pushing on. So we find out what the sound is. We come to find that there's a rugby ball that is to be pushed into a car horn and it's going off because it's duct taped to it, attracting all these zombies. Tendo goes on and thrusts his way into this fountain so that way the zombies are none the wiser. Tendo finally pops out of the fountain and then goes on to sneak away. So, Kenshiro makes his way from out of his bondage room and starts to make his way through this hallway. He all of a sudden sees this spider that has grown a pretty decent, large amount of web. And here's where Tendo goes on and meets with Kenshiro. Tendo goes on and kind of bumps Kenshiro on the back, and so Kenshiro turns and meets with Tendo. So here is where Tendo goes on and confesses how he feels, and Kenshiro was to just be like, man, like, it's like really amazing that like we're going through all this shit, and that's all that Tendo really cares about right now. Like, it means a lot. So they decide to get the heck out of this hallway, and Tendo decides to go to the roof because eventually there's going to be zombies further and further now more coming in. So Kenshiro is going on and holding this door, and you would honestly think that he would not be strong enough to be able to do this, but he is, luckily. So Tendo is grabbing all of these heavy items to just thrust it in front of this door as Kenshiro is holding the door for all these zombies to not come in here. So Tendo is grabbing all these things, putting them in front of the door, and Kenshiro is telling Tendo, it's like, dude, that's not going to hold him for long. So Tendo makes the only leap of faith thing that he can go on and do at this point. And so he's like, well, hey, right at the building over there, there is to be a good enough distance between this building and that one, so I'm going to go on and I'm just going to jump for it. Kenishiro's like, dude, you're not going to be able to make that jump. It's far too wide. And Tendo's like, well, hey, we have to do something crazy to keep alive. So Tendo goes on and he makes a run for it. And he jumps and he makes it. And so now we go on and we have Tendo that is telling Kenshiro, hey, you need to jump too. Like, you need to jump and stay alive. Kenshiro goes on and tells Tendo, it's like, dude, I'm not going to be able to make that jump. Like, I'm too scared. So, eventually, here is where Kenshiro confesses that his life was shit. That, if anything, like, he had to lie to people. And, if anything, he also felt that he had lied to Tendo about how his life was really going. And that confession that Tendo had made to Kenshiro made him realize that he should be honest with him too, because they could die here. They could die at any moment. So he just wanted to be honest. Kenshiro was to say that, like, he wasn't really living his dream job and he really never wanted to be in real estate. And if anything, what he ultimately wanted to do was to be a stand up comedian. And Tendo was like, well, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world for how Tendo would find that Kenshiro would make him laugh all the time. So Tendo said to Kenshiro, it's like, well, yeah, go on and do what you want, but do it in a way that is to just make people laugh. So Kenshiro goes on, and he is to finally decide that he wants to run for it and jump, because otherwise he's going to be nibbled by zombies. So Kenshiro goes on and he makes the jump, and he barely makes it. He just goes on and he just clips onto the bed of the building, and he's hoping that Tendo is going to save him, which he does. He grabs the hand, pulls him in. The only thing with Kenshiro is that bizarrely, while he's in midair, he thrusts all of his clothes off, and now he's stark buck naked. And so Kenshiro is telling Tendo, it's like, well, is this how I'm gonna die? Like, am I gonna die butt naked? And then Kenshiro grabs him and pulls him into the building. And so Kenshiro is all of a sudden like, hey man, did you get bite by somebody? What happened? And he's like, no, I just scraped my balls. And like that's how we kind of get through this situation here in a kind of just very comedic way. So we find them on top of this rooftop, and they're popping open some beers. They're getting all their food, and yeah, I'm sure Kenshiro's like, hey man, get all this food because I'm sure you haven't eaten in a number of days. They're taking these clothes and like just hanging them on this rack that they found for them to just kind of clean that way. So the two of them are at this fire, and both of them are just butt naked. So, uh, so they're going on and they're talking about their past and how, about how they looked in the past, and how what they did today was just seriously amazing. And so I'm trying to cut through a lot of this because there's a lot of dialogue here. So the next thing we see is all of a sudden what is to be a gun that is to look like very much video game-ish that's killing all these zombies. And you would think with these people being in zombies all of a sudden you would not have them go on and play video games of it. You'd think they'd kind of get a little overstimulated by a zombie apocalypse, but maybe it goes on and gives them kind of a strategy of some kind. So Kenshiro is going on and grilling up some food as Tendo is going on and playing a zombie apocalypse video game. He ends up getting tired, and so he stops. Here's where Kenshiro starts to look at the list that Tendo has, and he starts adding to it because the two of them are going to share in this experience together. And then he laughs at the fact of him going on and only having 34 eventual things on this list when they should be having 100. Kenshiro goes on and also mentions about how some of these things that Kendo has on his list would seem very impossible for him to actually achieve. Like going on and having a dinner date with a stewardess kind of just seems a little strange. So, but Tendo justifies is like, well, yeah, these are the things I've always ever wanted. So, like, if anything, yeah, like we're just gonna go on and we're just gonna have that on the list because why not? So Kenshiro says, like, yeah, Tendo, you're not gonna go on and be able to get a woman in a zombie apocalypse, let alone like you're never gonna get a woman at all because you just don't have it. You just have the ability to just kind of win over women, like Kenshiro does. So all of a sudden, they poke their heads out to look at all the zombies, and there's just one zombie that is just flopped on the ground, butt in the air, and she is just farting away. And then Kenshiro and Tendo look at one another. So that was pretty funny. So one of the things on the list is to get a big screen TV. So Tendo and Kenshiro are making their way to the mall to go and get it. And Kenichiro does not understand. He does not understand getting this TV. So, as they make their way through the town, they realize that there's quite a bit of carnage there. That, if anything, we find a fireman with like a fire hose, and he's weirdly like out of the fire hose is like flames are coming out of it. It makes no sense. So they all of a sudden notice that a vehicle is making their way, or like a truck or something. Yeah, it's a truck that is going to make its way through these streets to have this huge explosion go off. So they're trying to figure out a way to survive here because they know there's going to be this big explosion that goes off. And Tendo realizes the only way he can go on and survive is by making this huge motorcycle jump, because we have Tendo that has already gone on to fly off of this car door and make this big jump earlier. So now he's making this other jump so that way he can dodge this whole explosive. So, and this feels very much like Terminator 2 in a way here. So they go on and they make their way into this underground mall. And Kenichiro is like, hey man, we're in the underground part of the mall and we're just riding around in motorcycles. This makes no sense. So they find one of these doors to kind of just push up open and make their way into one of these stores. And here's where they find a number of survivors there. They find these three women, and then there's also this middle-aged man who has no name. So they all get together in this store, and the middle-aged guy is talking about how hopeless everything is, and how everybody at this point is just thinking like, well, hey, when in doubt, get some alcohol and just have a good time. We have the girls that are sort of throwing the guys beers as they're going on, and I think they're like chugging whiskey or something. So all of a sudden they grab all the necessities to just have a meal together. And then as further and further dialogue starts to happen here, we go on, we start to find out how these people are going on and are to have just kind of flown back and kind of what they've been dealing with. So eventually there is to be the ask is like, wait a minute, like, are you guys stewardess? And surefire enough, yes, they are flight attendants or flight stewardess or whatever you want to call them. And that ends up scratching one thing off of Tendo's list, because he's going on and he's telling Kenichiro exactly like, oh man, we're whining and dining. And then all of a sudden he finds out that every single one of these women are all flight attendants. So he's like, oh my god, what? So scratch one thing off the list. So we find out what all of these girls' names are. So we found out the girl in purple is Raika, the girl in yellow is Maki, and the girl that's in kind of like a pink is Yukuri. And the funny thing, Kenichiro's like, hey, what is your name, sir? And he's like, oh, the world's gonna end. We're all gonna die. Well, we'll come back to that later. It's like, okay. So the further and further that these girls drink, the more that that it's to the point where Kenichiro is to go on and start talking to one of the girls up, and Tendo is realizing like, man, like he's using his charisma and he's winning this girl over. Oh, they're already like touching one another. They're being very intimate. Like so. Tendo is realizing that he needs to do something absolutely shocking right now to win one of these girls over, because Tendo had kind of briefly gone on to talk to one of these girls, and it wasn't going anywhere. So Tendo decides that he's going to go on and he's going to whip out this bottle of alcohol, and he's going to impress everybody by supposedly snorting it up his nose. I don't know, like that whole scene just kind of seemed weird. Why would you snort alcohol? But I guess it's just something different, right? So he's pounding this thing through his nose, supposedly, which is not really actually seen here. And then shortly thereafterwards, he's vomiting it all up. But he's like, well, hey, it was worth it because I at least had fun. So, and we never see the vomit. But if anything, we go on and we see uh, the girl in the pink, who is to go on and be uh, uh, Yuka Yukari. I have to remember that name now. Yukari. So Yukari is to go on and to have been asked a question to Tendo, simply about like, well, hey, do you have a boyfriend? And Yukari's like, do you really think that would be the best time to ask a question like that? And then he's like, oh, yeah, that was a really stupid question. Because, of course, Tendo is to be a really very awkward guy. Plus, also, like, there is no surefire knowing of whether or not this girl's boyfriend is still alive in the zombie apocalypse. So, Yukari goes on and makes her way to Tendo and is to have her hand on his back and is to try to comfort him. And Tendo kind of looks behind him and realizes that Yukari is there. So eventually, as the two of them are talking, Yukari mentions to Tendo that she was worried about him, and that's why she came back for him to just check on him. And so Tendo's like, so I really did like do something to get this girl's attention and also make her worried about me. And so cool. Like I at least did that. At least he at least did something. So now we have Maki and Ken and Shiro that go on to their own, and Rika and the middle-aged man are now kind of left by themselves also, as Rika, the girl in the purple, is to be drinking away here. The middle-aged man is to reveal his leg, and he has this wound on his leg, an infection wound that eventually will showcase here that at some point he will turn. So and so he does. The middle-aged man becomes infected, and then all of a sudden Rika is to have been on this table with her legs kind of propped up. The middle-aged man goes on to eventually slip in between these girls' legs, and Rika's like, well, hey, middle-aged man, this isn't the time for you to go on and try to take advantage of me. All of a sudden, Rika is to pull away this guy's head from between her, and then she realizes that this guy is a zombie, and that she's like, oh, well, like, so she's going to be infected soon after him. So now we have Kenshiro and Maki who are to have heard some screams. So they realize that, well, like, should we go on and should we continue having sex for the second round? Or should we see what was going on? If anything, I think they probably chose the second round. So, uh, so we go on and have Kenshiro and Maki go back because there's a whole lot of stuff to kind of cut through, because like a lot of it was just again uh, Yukari and Tendo uh, talking about how like this girl is worried about him and blah blah blah. It's just a lot of just meaningless dialogue to me. So, and how she checked on him. Oh, she checked on him. Anyways, so Kenshiro goes on with Maki to make his way back to Rika, and eventually we come to find that the whiskey bottle is in this girl's mouth, Rika's mouth. So yeah, we realize that this girl's in full zombie mode. So, but also at least she won't really bite anybody because she has a bottle in her mouth. So Maki is to just be so like out of it. Like she's been pounding away at some sexual behavior, she's been so drunk, and everything between. So she's just kind of very out of it. And all of a sudden, Kenshiro, who it seems is to not be as out of it as she is to kind of dodge when Rika comes flying at them and starts attacking Rika and or Maki and killing her. So Kenichiro is kind of guilty that Maki had gotten killed here, but he's like, well, she was killed by a zombie, but still it's kind of by my hands because I didn't protect her. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing when you really think about it, because like he should have gone on and kind of like protected her. Plus, also he probably would have gotten a girlfriend out of this. But anyways, because I'm sure his girlfriend is probably dead. Uh, anyways, so we cut back to Tendo and Yukari, and here's where they're talking about living their dream. And Yuraki goes on at some point to mention how she had been on a plane once, and a flight attendant had been really nice to her and had comforted her by putting her hand on her back. And that simple gesture had gone on to make Yukari to want to be a flight attendant one day, to be able to comfort somebody like that. And so Yuraki goes on and mentions how she was to go on and be living her dream by being a flight attendant. So eventually that dream is going to be over, sadly. So, but also, Ikari goes on and mentions to Tendo about how he or how she could sympathize with him because she, being a flight attendant, there are sometimes where people are rude to her. That there was a guy who had gone on the flight to be mad at her, and like she can really understand what it means to be exploited. I guess in a company like this. Well, yeah, like when you have so many people just kind of flying around and you need them all the time, and there's so many flight attendants, there's so many pilots, and so on and so forth. Yeah, like you probably really are going to get really worked. So eventually, Ikari is to go on and ask Tendo what his dream is, and he still really hasn't quite figured that out yet. Um, and if anything, him doing his job was just some borrowed dream and it wasn't really his. So all of a sudden, we go on to find uh, the middle aged man going on and attacking and going flying at Yukari. So Tendo pulls away the middle aged man, and I think he ends up going flying down a flight of stairs. So we have two men that are to leave their women defenseless and just have them bite, getting bitten and killed. Come on, guys, be a gentleman. So Tendo goes on and checks on Yukari and realizes that she was getting bitten on the neck. So the two of them are hugging at this point. I'm like, dude, you shouldn't be doing that. But they hug here. And so I think at this point, like, Yukari is just kind of fine with if her life is to have ended now. Because if anything, she had gone on to be a flight attendant and she had lived her dream. So if anything, if she dies or turns into a zombie, she's fine here. So the middle-aged man comes back here, and so and before the middle-aged man is attacking Yukari, Yukari mentions how at least it was nice to have one final party. That it felt fun for once. And then we come to find Tendo making his way back to Kenshiro. So they give an update about what had all happened, and then we have Kenshiro that is going to mention, "Hey, I have your big screen TV." You know, the one you were asking for? So now the two of them are happy again, and so they haul ass and they make their way back to the motorcycle and they drive off, and they now have this big, huge, giant TV, and they're going on and playing this zombie apocalypse game on this TV, and then all of a sudden there's a screen that comes by, it says you're dead. So despite all that tough time and those hard moments, at least we would come to find that Tendo is to cross one of the things off of his list and call it a day after that. So really, that is to be what's going on within these number of episodes. I'm going to get the heck out of here so I can go on and do other things with my life. Thank you for watching this. So with that said, I hope to want to keep covering this, but eventually it depends on if people want to go on and actually want to have this reviewed. I don't think I went about the best way to talk about this either. But if anything, also, like, I'm just putting out content at this point. But at least this one was just like, oh my god, this was enjoyable. I enjoyed this. So hopefully people will justify it more. I am going to tag this thing like crazy. For anything that I know is to seemingly be a zombie thing that I can kind of put in here, that's going to be just shoved in here as much as possible so it gets attention to this project, because I hope that people go on and want to have this be a reviewed thing. But ultimately, it'll probably be that this first video will probably be a thing that'll grab people's attention. Then after that, it'll eventually just fade, because everything fades. And it doesn't rain all the time. The crow, yeah. Anyways, so with that said, I'm gonna fade out of here. Also, thank you for going on and watching this. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.